TorahCafe.com.
So there has been a whole array of attempts to destroy the state, some of them military, and those are over. Some of them economic, and those are mostly over. Terrorism will continue, it'll come back, it'll ebb and it'll flow, it'll make life worse, it'll get a little bit better at times, but it's not going to destroy the state. And therefore we have a sense that we have all sorts of threats, we have all sorts of things that we have to deal with. There's Iran, there's other issues, but fundamentally, the Jewish state is really here to stay. What I want to suggest to you tonight is that that confidence is entirely misplaced. Because the enemies of the Jewish state understand very well where they have failed. They know that they have failed in the military field, they know that they have failed economically, they understand that terrorism can make life miserable, but it cannot destroy a country. And therefore they have embarked on what is perhaps the most creative and perhaps the most effective of all of the tools that they have ever undertaken to destroy the Jewish state. And what they have decided to do is to take the case about the Jewish state to the court of international opinion. And in this court of international opinion, to try or to have on trial the idea of a Jewish state. That is now the critical arena. Now, before we go into exactly how they're doing it, if you're saying to yourself, well, what do I care what the court of international opinion thinks? I mean, so let them convict the idea of a Jewish state. Doesn't bother me what they think, but it should. Because I remind you that the Soviet Union had 3,000 men in uniform. 3 million men in uniform. 3,000 would have fallen a lot earlier. Had 3 million men in uniform. And the Soviet Union effectively fell without a single bullet being fired, more or less. The question is, why is that? How does a gigantic empire with one of the world's largest and most sophisticated armies collapse into a heap of dust with scarcely a bullet being fired? It happens when the idea on which the country was founded isn't believed by anybody anymore. It started out, of course, that the West knew that communism was evil. And then the awareness that communism was evil spread into the fiber of the civilian life of the Soviet Union, and eventually it reached the ranks of the Soviet soldiers themselves. They understood that what they were protecting was a lie. They understood it deep in their bones, and once people started to push walls down and take bricks out of walls and cross borders, they didn't have it in their hearts or in their souls to even fight back, because they understood the whole thing was make pretend. And the world's largest empire entered the history books as a heap of dust and nothing else, because the idea had been disproven. In a very different way, the demise of the former South Africa is also what happens to a country when its idea is completely delegitimized. Now, that idea, by the way, of course, deserved to be delegitimized, as did the idea of the Soviet Union. But once again, what happened was that there was, of course, some violence inside South Africa, and there was plenty of attempts by the West to force South Africa to bend. There were economic boycotts, and there were sports boycotts, there were academic boycotts, there were airline boycotts. There were all sorts of things that were done. But fundamentally, when